Still on updates on the ongoing presidential petition, the Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi have once again reiterated their call to the Presidential Election Petition Court to nullify the victory of President Bola Tinubu. Recall that the party and Obi had argued that Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima were not qualified to have contested the election. They also contend that the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) was wrong to have declared Tinubu the winner of the election despite not scoring 25% of the vote in the Federal Capital Territory. These were their arguments in their final written address in response to the joint final address by Tinubu and Shettima seeking the dismissal of the petition by the Labour Party and its candidate. In stressing their claims of non-compliance with Electoral Acts and other related regulations, Obi and his party said that INEC's alleged failure to transmit the results of the presidential election electronically from the poll units to its result viewing portal amounted to no compliance. The Labour Party and its candidate argued that they did substantially well to prove their case, having called 30 witnesses and tendered volumes of documents, as compared to one witness from INEC, one from Tinubu and Shettima, and none from the All Progressive Congress. In the same vein, the People's Democratic Party has expressed confidence in the ability of the justice serving on the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, as well as the Nigerian Judiciary, to ensure that justice is not only done but seen to have been done when a final verdict is delivered. Director of Strategy and Research of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, Pedro Baseki, said this in an interview. According to him, the party's confidence is hinged on the fact that the judiciary was fully aware that a lot, including its integrity as an arm of government, is at stake. He equally expressed optimism that the judges will summon the courage to deal with the issues, facts and evidence presented by the opposition parties in their various petitions, challenging the results of the 2023 presidential election as declared by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). Obaseki noted that, apart from PDP's petition, the petition filed by the Allied People Movement (APM) seeking the nullification of President Bola Tinubu and Kashim Shettima's victory was worth mentioning because of the key issue bordering on the eligibility of the candidates of the All Progressive Congress (APC) to contest the election in the question or at the first place. He said, and I quote, "The first thing is eligibility. If 10 people follow me to run a race, I can begin to question who won only if those 10 people were qualified. That is what has been thrown up by the APM petition." Video shows more detail on
the court to nullify the election or decide that President Tinubu was not validly elected, according to Section 134C of the Constitution. If the tribunal accedes to their request, it may order a rerun or a runoff, depending on the reasoning of the court. If the court orders a runoff instead of a rerun, how will the candidates be determined? And what does the Constitution provide regarding a situation where the court dismisses or determines, rather, that there is no duly elected president? An Arise Analyst, Associate Professor of Law, Sam Amadi, is here to look at this issue. How will the court really come to a determination that there is no president?
Well, first, nobody knows what the court will do, because the court will normally look at what has transpired. But the briefs we've seen in public domain that have been circulated seems to like many of those petitioners are asking for invalidation on the ground of maybe non-compliance or on the ground that nobody was validly elected. And the Constitution seemed to have provided for that. If you look at Section 134, so assuming the court comes to that decision, the tribunal, that the election for whatever reason has to be invalidated, then the tribunal may order another election, or if it's because nobody won, nobody got the required, numbers to win based on the evidence they have, then they're going to do a runoff. The question there is, how do we select who will
do the runoff? But the Electoral Act, I thought, is clear for a runoff there.
The Electoral Act, the Constitution, 134(3).
Yes.
The problem is that people mistake two things. It talks about, first, that the person who has the highest number of votes, so easy to determine. So when the tribunal has looked at all the votes and certified those they think are valid, the person who has the highest number of votes is in. The other person who comes in to run in that runoff will be the person who has a majority of votes in the highest number of states. Now that's where it becomes tricky. The question is, what's a majority, legally speaking, as regards maybe highest number of votes? If you watch, the language of the Constitution are always specific. So it didn't use in the section 1342, where it talked about what it takes to win. You must have the highest number of votes.
I hope we're having that, on the screen.
Yes, they should have the screen, so people can read it. Yeah. So unlike where it talks about who wins in terms of majority of vote and majority two-thirds of votes cast, here it says majority. Now, if you look at the law, black law dictionary, under dictionaries, a majority is, you have a majority when you score more than half. So they're going to look at who has more than half of the votes in a state. You have state A, B, C, and D. So the person who has the highest of that majority, more than half. So for example, if I win in state A and I won with, let's say, 30% of the vote, that's not a majority of the vote cast. So if I win with 52%, for example, that's majority. So the Black Law Dictionary, for example, Merriam-Webster says a number or quantity greater than half of the total is majority. If you look at Collins Dictionary, say the same thing. It's a number of votes, of voters, or jurors, or others in agreement constituting more than half of the total. The most interesting is the one of Black Law Dictionary, which is the lawyer's Bible. It says, where there are only two candidates, he who receives the greater number of the vote cast is said to have a majority. When there are more than two competitors for the same office, the person who receives the greatest number of votes is a plurality. But he who has not a majority, but he has no majority unless he receives a greater number of votes than those cast for all the candidates, which means 50 plus 1. Now, so the interesting thing is this. You may have highest vote in a state, but you don't have a majority of the vote in that state. So it will be discounted for you. So the Constitution says a majority of the votes in the highest number of states. So that's the mathematics that the court will now look after they have validated all the votes and say, okay, fine.
How about the mathematics of the FCT as captured in our Constitution?
That's a different one. That will go to them to determine first whether the person declared has won. If they agree that you have to win, then they will look at it whether you win or not. But if they say you have to win and you didn't get it, that's when you get to this issue of 1, 3, 4, 3. It's only when they say that the winner, either because he didn't have the number of votes, states, or he didn't get FCT, if they say it so, or he didn't have constitutional qualification, howsoever they do it. Whenever they think that the election is inconclusive because somebody has not got the validly returned, they go to the second stage, which is to say either they cancel the elections and say a re-election, a rerun in terms of another election. But once they go to a runoff, which is a 1, 3, 4, 3 is talking about, it will now be between the person with the highest number of valid votes on one bucket. The second person will follow him, because it has to be 2, will be the person who has the majority, highest number of majorities. So if you score 51 and above in 6 states, somebody may have won or got 25% in more states. But if he doesn't have majority more than you, you are in his half. Now this is going to be tricky because people will be looking at, it's a matter of numbers. Majority, whoever got the highest number of states. No, the person who has the highest number of votes is in, whether he has majority or not. But the second person who joins him is the person who has majority, which is more than half. So this is constitutional now because the people...
Quite tricky, yeah?
Exactly, tricky. So the question then is, if that happens, people might be disappointed, depending on the votes that the tribunal has validated, that the person who may not have the highest number of 25% in highest number of states, or somebody who may not have the highest number of wins, but has the highest number of majority in the highest number of states.
Yeah, the spread.
And the key point is 50 plus. So if you get 30, you have majority. The people that have small, 30, 31, But if you don't have, for example, assuming someone has 30, another person has 25, another person has 29, another person has. So you could actually have the 100%, but nobody has majority. It will be discounted for you in calculating majority in the higher state. So that's really what people are not looking at. Because I look at the Twitter conversation, people say, it will be X or Y. They're not saying, who did the Constitution prescribe? So the Constitution in 1343 says The first person who gets to the bucket is the highest number of votes cast. Whether he has 3 states or 10 states, highest number. The second person who will follow him to do the runoff now will be the person who has majority. And majority, when there are more than 2 people, is that he must score 50 plus 1, or 10 or 20. You must have 70, 60. But if you have 45% of the vote cast, you are not a majority, and that will be discounted. So we might see a surprise when we have someone who didn't have the highest number of states, or who didn't have the highest number of 2/3, may have the highest number of majority wins and become the candidate for the election. And that's really why it's tricky. But all this is presupposing that the tribunal takes a view that the election is invalid, inconclusive, or whatever it is. But if they don't take that view, they were not going to get to that point. And this is why it's interesting. We've not had a situation in our country where the election has been upset on the ground that the person declared was not validly declared. So when the briefs, all the 3 briefs, PDP, APC, Labour Party, APM, all the briefs seem to invite the tribunal to either invalidate, to say elections terribly flawed, rerun, or disqualify somebody, or declare that somebody was not validly elected, in which case it might get into a run.